This is the Music History In-Depth podcast for February 26th through March 4th. On this week's show, John Lennon and Madonna create controversy, and two women pull off historic firsts. In 1980, after being in the mainstream since 1977 with the film Saturday Night Fever, disco was beginning to near its end. The musical genre was generally associated before it hit the mainstream as being the music for Black people, Latinos, and gay people, who were three groups of people that some people in mainstream America, and especially in the media, did not really like kindly, to be nice about it, in 1980. For example, in 1979, there was a disco protest at Chicago's Comiskey Baseball Park that became known as Disco Demolition Night, which turned into a riot, partly along racial lines, as some disco protesters brought records by black artists to burn at this protest, whether they were disco artists or not. There were also pop and rock groups being marketed as disco killers, like the group The Knack, who were best known for their smash hit song, My Sharona. Enter the Grammy Awards. Always known for being late to the party, the Grammys finally decided, after more than a few years of disco being the driving force of the music industry, to give out a Grammy Award for Best Disco Recording. In a weird twist, the Grammys actually picked the nominees pretty well, which is usually not their forte, let's be blunt. Every one of the songs that they picked has gone on to become classics that are still played to this very day. The nominees were Michael Jackson's Don't Stop Till You Get Enough, Rod Stewart's Do You Think I'm Sexy, Donna Summer's Bad Girls, and Earth, Wind & Fire's Boogie Wonderland. The winner of the award went to none of those artists, but to a woman whose song is considered to be the greatest dance song of all time, at least according to VH1, and one of the 500 greatest pop songs of all time, according to Billboard magazine. This song was written and produced in 1978 by songwriters Freddie Perrin and Dino Fakaris. It was originally a B-side to a cover version of the Righteous Brothers song Substitute. But once disc jockeys started playing this song took off and hit number one on the Billboard Singles Chart in March of 1979. On February 27, 1980, the Grammy Awards gave it the Grammy for Best Disco Song. They discontinued the award the next year as they realized that the disco backlash was in full swing and that the disco genre had died a very premature death. What is ironic is that this song about strength and determination has become a feminist anthem, despite the fact that two men wrote it. The song is even a part of the Library of Congress's National Registry. The disco smash hit and, according to VH1, the greatest dance song ever recorded, I Will Survive by Gloria Gaynor, which received the only Grammy Award ever given for Best Disco Song on February 27, 1980. In the history of Billboard singles charts, there have only been a few people who have had a top 10 single in each of the 5 major Billboard singles charts, those charts being the Pop/Hot 100 singles, country music singles, dance music singles, adult contemporary music singles, and R&B. Elvis came close, but there wasn't a dance chart back in his day, so technically he doesn't count, although he probably could have been top 10 on that chart as well. There was a remix of his song A Little Less Conversation, A Little More Action that I think went top 10 on the dance charts, but that was decades after he tragically passed away in 1977. Lionel Richie has come close as well, but he hasn't hit the dance charts, not even with his song Dancing on the Ceiling. Go figure. Nope, The first time that this feat happened, it was done by a woman who you're probably not even thinking of, and one of the songs that helped accomplish this little bit of history found itself being a part of a major controversy. In 1985, the Parents Music Resource Council released its list of songs that it had deemed filthy, otherwise known as the Filthy 15 list. This song was actually number 2 on the list, and when you listen to it a little closer, you'll understand why. On March 2nd, 1985, this song hit number 9 on the Billboard R&B chart. That completed the historic event. She checkmarked 2 chart positions in 1981 when Morning Train went top 10 on the pop and adult contemporary charts. Then 1983 brought 2 more chart hits, Telephone on the dance chart and the duet with Kenny Rogers of the cover version of Bob Seger's classic song We've Got Tonight, which hit top 10 on the country chart. 4 charts down, 1 chart to go. 1985 also saw this artist win a Grammy Award for Best Mexican-American Performance for the song Me Gustas Tal Como Eres. This artist is also an actress, having appeared on shows such as Miami Vice, Highlander, the series, and Tech War. She's also done voiceover work for anime such as Gargoyles and Phineas and Ferb. She's also done Broadway, performing in Grease and Man of La Mancha. Nobody managed to accomplish this much crossover success. Not Madonna, not Lady Gaga, not yet anyway, not even Michael Jackson. Since then, I believe only Beyoncé and Taylor Swift have managed to pull off this feat. This artist had a lot more hits than just the handful that gave her a place in the history books, including a James Bond theme song called For Your Eyes Only, You've Got the Look with Prince, along with countless other songs. She's originally from Scotland, but now, at last check, lives in Nevada, just outside of Las Vegas. The singer is Miss Sheena Easton. The song that completed the historic feat, the Prince-penned song that made the Parents Music Resource Council's Filthy 15 list, which led to all those lovely parental advisory stickers that you see on albums these days, but no one ever pays attention to. The song Sugar Walls hit the top 10 on the R&B chart on March 2nd, 1985. On March 3rd, 1989, a single and a music video were released that caused a lot of controversy. It also caused a case of cancel culture in its time, if it were. But it did solidify the artist as a rebellious icon. Let's go with a little backstory first. In the 1980s, especially the late 1980s, Coca-Cola and Pepsi were going at it for soft drink market share supremacy. Coke at the time was the undisputed leader in market share, but Pepsi was making a play for the number 1 spot. The two companies started going at each other and also around each other with innovative and memorable ads. People call this period in music the Great Cola Wars. Both companies used star power to sell their stuff. Whitney Houston, for instance, sang for Diet Coke. Pepsi, though, was the real star power champion during this era. First, they sponsored the King of Pop's tour, the Victory Tour, with his brothers, the Jacksons. That was done right after the success of the Thriller album, and it was also held to promote the group's Victory album. Pepsi had the group do a commercial together, and as the first honorable mention of this podcast, the Jacksons' Pepsi commercial premiered first on MTV on February 27th, 1984, just before going to broadcast television. It was during this commercial shoot, by the way, that Michael's hair caught on fire from some misplaced pyrotechnics, and he suffered severe burns to his head. And it was this incident that led to Michael becoming addicted to painkillers, at least according to Michael. Pepsi also had Michael J. Fox doing commercials, as they were doing heavy product placement for his movie Back to the Future 2 at the time. All of this product placement and pop star shilling for soft drinks is what led to Neil Young releasing his 1988 song and album, This Note's For You, about how artists were selling out for corporate America and how he was not going to be one of those guys. These days, though, every artist seems to have a business deal with somebody or other or some sort of sponsorship, but back in the day, this was heavily frowned upon and it was actually looked at as selling out. Neil even made a video for the song that made fun of Whitney and Michael. This video, by the way, was first banned by MTV, ironically because of product placement. And then it won Video of the Year at the MTV Video Music Awards in yet another case of irony. Undeterred by the criticism, though, Pepsi decided to swing for the fences for their next superstar, the queen of pop. They figured they already had their king, Madonna, who had built a career on pushing buttons on topics such as sexuality. On March 21st, 1989, she was coming out with her album Like a Prayer, after having released her self-titled debut album, her breakthrough second album Like a Virgin, and her third album True Blue. Madonna was also tabloid fodder at the time because of her relationships, especially her marriage to one of the hottest young actors at the time, Sean Penn. Pepsi wanted to be associated with a hot, edgy superstar in order to appeal to young Gen Xers, so they signed her to a $5 million endorsement deal and produced exactly one commercial. On March 2nd, 1989, television stations ran the commercial, which was pretty tame. On March 3rd, 1989, the very next day, the lead single, Like a Prayer, and the music video for it came out. In the video, Madonna is seen kissing a black man, the actor Leon, who is probably best known for being in the Temptations TV miniseries, and dancing in front of 3 burning crosses. I'm not sure which part of the video offended Middle America more, the burning crosses or a white woman kissing a black man. This was the 80s after all. But they let their feelings be known. There were cries to boycott Pepsi from church members and conservative groups as usual. TV stations stopped playing the Pepsi commercial immediately. MTV decided not to even bother playing the music video. Okay, at least for a little while. Some radio stations pulled the song completely. Again, at least for a little while. Pepsi completely caved in to conservative pressure and canceled their endorsement deal with Madonna. They did let her keep the $5 million, though. Here's where cancel culture actually had the opposite effect that it was supposed to have. While conservatives looked at what they did as a victory for their version of morality, everybody else, especially young people, wanted to see more because, of course, if you take something away that pisses off their parents, their kids will want to see it. All of which is to say that young people like myself went out and bought the single in droves, sending the song to #1 on the Billboard singles chart 6 weeks after it was released. Eventually, MTV, of course, went back to playing the music video, and now no one even blinks when it comes on air or calls for a boycott. Radio stations went back to playing the song as soon as conservatives found another toy to fixate on. At that point, it was mainly rap music. The ones it ended up hurting, for a while anyway, was actually Pepsi. Not for endorsing Madonna, but for pulling their support from Madonna. See, at that point, Pepsi went from being the scrappy underdog sticking it to the big boys to just being yet another part of corporate America's problem at the time. Pepsi's edge with the kids was gone, and the audience that they were going for, the American youth, like myself at that point, pulled their support for them, at least for a little while. Madonna, meanwhile, solidified her stance as being the preeminent rebellious icon that she is known for, even though all she did was make a sort of a provocative music video. Unlike Pepsi, Madonna didn't apologize for what she did. In fact, in interview after interview, she doubled down. Her refusal to back down and cower earned her a new legion of fans, sent the song Like a Prayer to number 1, and when the album Like a Prayer came out in late March, that sent the album to number 1 as well. Sometimes you just have to stand up for yourself and your beliefs in the face of criticism, even when it looks like things are getting rough. Also, young people appreciate loyalty, even from corporate America. It's a lesson that today's older business and political leaders should probably learn, and sooner rather than later. Madonna's lead single, Like a Prayer, and its controversial music video, both released to the general public on March 3rd, 1989. Before we continue, we'd like to tell you about the Music History Today podcast, where we go over the events that happened on that particular day in music history. The Music History Today podcast drops every single day, including weekends, on this podcast network. Now, back to the Music History In-Depth podcast. Time to go across the pond, as they say, to jolly old England for our next two stories. On March 4th, 1966, in the London Evening Standard, John Lennon gave what most people would have considered a pretty uneventful interview. He talked about a lot of things, but somehow the issue of religion came up, specifically Christianity and whether it was dying out as a religion. John Lennon said yes, quote, "Christianity will go. It will vanish and shrink. We're more popular than Jesus now." End quote. Now, when you take those lines at face value, that was probably true. Beatlemania was still going strong at that time, so in England, the interview was taken as such, and no crime, no foul. Here is where the phrase "words matter" comes into play and where the real controversy kicks in. See, in America, there was one of those kids' teen idol magazines called Datebook. 5 months after the original interview from John Lennon in the London Evening Standard, Datebook went and printed the interview, but changed up everything to this simple phrase, "We're more popular than Jesus." That sent the Bible Belt crowd into a frenzy. How dare John Lennon say that he was more popular than the Son of God? But that's not exactly what Lennon said. When he said it, he was referring to the craziness created by Beatlemania and how it was more popular than Jesus at the time. Not that they, the Beatles, were more popular than Jesus. Didn't matter, though, because the far-right ultra-conservatives, as usual, had an axe to grind. The ultra-religious groups and radio stations organized Beatles record-burning rallies. They banned Beatles records and boycotted stations that played them. It got to the point where John Lennon had to issue an apology and clarify his remarks, even though he technically did absolutely nothing wrong, and it was Datebook who screwed up and printed a clickbait headline meant to sell magazine copies. Words matter. And the media wonders why people hate them so much. The original interview, in which John Lennon explained Christianity that got boiled down in America to "we're more popular than Jesus," was released in Great Britain on March 4th, 1966. In 1993, Hearst Management owners Bob and Chris Herbert wanted to start a girl group. They had seen the rise of the boy bands and figured that the time was right for a female version. In February of 1994, they placed an ad for auditions. The first audition was held on March 4th, 1994. At the audition at Danceworks Studios, about 400 women showed up. They had to learn a dance routine for the song Stay, and they had to perform songs that they themselves chose. From that audition, the group was whittled down to 12. A second audition was held in April. One person made the cut to the second audition even though she was not at the first audition because she had to work that day. In any event, after the second audition, they had to do another audition, this time at Norris Studios. They had to perform the song Signed, Sealed, Delivered and perform yet another song that they themselves chose. And finally, after deliberating, the group was formed. From the start, the group had problems with the management. For starters, none of the ladies had a contract. They were cutting demos, but nothing was really happening. They convinced their management to set up an industry performance event in December of 1994. Because of that performance, a bidding war began for their record contract. Hearst management then tried signing the ladies to a contract, but none of them signed. They instead found new management with manager Simon Fuller, who got them a record deal with Virgin Records in 1995. They supposedly also took/stole their master copies of their demos when they left Hearst management, although that's probably just an industry rumor at this point. If it is true, though, it would make for great business sense and an extremely smart business move, and would also help to explain the financial success of the group. These ladies are not stupid by anybody's stretch of the imagination. They are very savvy. Once they released their first single in 1996, it was game over. They became huge with merchandising, fashion, a film, and, of course, music. They are one of the biggest selling groups of all time, having sold 85 million records. Their debut album sold 31 million records worldwide, becoming the biggest selling album by a female group worldwide. They were, and still are, considered pop culture icons, with girl power leading the 1990s Cool Britannia movement. The group was originally called Touch, but changed its name to Spice. They couldn't use that, though, because there was a rapper already named Spice, so they simply added a word. Top of the Pops magazine gave them their now famous nicknames. The first audition for the group that would eventually consist of Victoria Adams, Posh Spice, Melanie Brown, Scary Spice, Melanie Chisholm, Sporty Spice, Emma Brunton, Baby Spice, and Jerry Halliwell, Ginger Spice, better known to everybody as the Spice Girls. And that first audition for the group was held on March 4th, 1994. Let's finish off with some other honorable mentions for the week. All right, 3 of them are actually honorable, 1 not so much, and 1 actually concerns a date. First up, let's go with the honorable. In 1875, an opera was first performed after the controversy surrounding it almost derailed the performance. The opera was about a gypsy girl who seduces an army corporal named Don Jose, who was engaged at the time. After being seduced by the girl, Don Jose helps the girl escape trouble with the cops, only to have himself put in jail. He then deserts the army in order to be with her. But as every great love story goes, the girl kicks Don Jose to the side for a bullfighter. Don Jose, of course, can't handle it. It is an opera, after all. So he kills her by stabbing her. Why great love stories always end up with someone dead, I couldn't even tell you. But I'm looking at you, William Shakespeare, and Romeo and Juliet. Spoiler alert, Romeo and Juliet both die. Sorry to break it to you. Anyway, here is where the controversy kicks in with this particular opera. The Opéra Comique in Paris, France, where the opera was being staged, was known for more family-friendly productions, we'll say. Doing one where someone gets killed was not exactly going to fly. Members of the production's leadership got into a heated battle over it. It got to the point where one of them quit because the composer would not change the script. The scandal was so hot that big actresses of the era wouldn't even try out for the part of the main character. It was that toxic a controversy. Finally, on March 3rd, 1875, the opera premiered. At first, it was met with halfway decent reviews. However, as time went on, people began to warm up to the opera, and it soon became a classic. The composer, unfortunately, did not live long enough to see his opera become huge, having had a heart attack and dying only 30 performances into the opera's run. The composer, George Bizet. The opera about the seductive gypsy girl, Carmen. And it premiered in France on March 3rd, 1875. An honorable mention goes to this next event. On March 2nd, 1984, a movie was released that is now part of the Library of Congress's National Registry. It was modeled after the documentaries Gimme Shelter, The Song Remains the Same, and The Last Waltz. The movie was almost all completely ad-libbed. The rock mockumentary about a fake British rock band had gags such as having a cucumber stuck down a person's crotch and also exploding drummers. It's now getting the sequel treatment after all these decades. The original movie that starred Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, Harry Shearer, and Rob Reiner as the documentarian, among many other people in the movie. This is Spinal Tap, released into movie theaters on March 2nd, 1984. Now, on to our third honorable mention. On March 2nd, 1990, country music artist Luke Combs was born. Since in 2014, he has racked up 5 studio albums, 4 EPs, and 17 singles, with every single one hitting number 1 on the country music charts, except for one of them. He's also won a lot of awards. He's also had some controversy over the past year for something that he did that should honestly have not have been controversial, but this is the world we live in these days, so even breathing becomes controversial, especially if you're crossing racial lines. In 2023, Luke released a cover version of Tracy Chapman's hauntingly iconic 1988 song, Fast Car. Luke's version hit the top 10 on 6 different American charts, including hitting number 1 on 2 different country music charts and the adult top 40 chart. There have been other versions of this song, but people were rubbed the wrong way for some reason by Luke's version, apparently because he had massive success with his version, eclipsing the original version, which hit the top 10, but going to number 4. Oh, and also because Tracy Chapman is a black woman who is a member of the LGBTQ community, and Luke is a straight white male who had success with the song in a genre that hasn't exactly been kind to either black or gay artists. Let's be nice about that. Luke has had the accusations of cultural appropriation, but in his defense, Luke has always given Tracy massive respect for the song and said that he recorded the song because it reminded him of when he was young and that Fast Car was one of the first songs that he learned on the guitar. So really, lighten up, people, already. Jeez. There has been some major upside, by the way, to Luke releasing his cover version of the song. For starters, Tracy's original version has seen a huge jump in streams and sales. Even her debut album is gaining in popularity again. Second, the song has won more awards for both Tracy and Luke, with Tracy picking up a Song of the Year award at the Country Music Association Awards, becoming the first black female to win that award since it's a songwriting award and she is the songwriter of the song. Tracy also performed Fast Car as a duet with Luke at the Grammy Award ceremony in 2024, which for most people seemed to be the highlight of the night. Also, it got people talking again and showing respect for Tracy, who, by all accounts, had essentially quit the business over 30 years ago. So maybe, hopefully, this will encourage her to go out and at least do a few shows somewhere. So, congratulations, I say. And happy birthday to Luke Combs, one of the good guys. Born March 2nd, 1990. Now, to a dishonorable mention of sorts. In the mid-1950s, rock and roll, a popular music with black youth that was spun off of blues music, started to become popular with white kids. Black artists like Chuck Berry and Fats Domino started to become popular, which scared white parents at the time, much like how rap music scared white parents in the 70s, 80s, and 90s. Yes, kids, rap was not always in the mainstream like it is today. Anyway, back to rock and roll. Some white people were so scared of racial integration and of white kids being influenced by what they considered black music at the time that on February 26, 1954, the United States Congress, of all people, tried to stop rock and roll by drafting an interstate commerce law against it. This actually happened, people. Not even remotely making this up. In this law, Congress wanted to forbid distribution of, quote, obscene, lewd, lascivious, or filthy publication, picture, disc, transcription, or other article capable of producing sound across state lines, end quote. The draft of this bill, which was pushed by the Catholic Church, of all people, was also pushed by the National Piano Tuners Association and the National Ballroom Operators Association, who saw rock and roll as affecting their livelihoods. I guess the piano tuners didn't realize at the time that more pianos being sold to people learning songs by rock and roll pianists like Fats Domino would mean more work for their association members. I guess that kind of went over their heads. In any event, the bill never made it through Congress, thankfully. But on February 26, 1954, Congress did try to use your hard tax dollars to kill rock and roll. Finally, let's pay homage to something that happens every 4 years. Only once, though. The date, February 29th, because music history does actually happen on that date. It's just that it's only once every 4 years, that's all. For instance, in the year 2000, Steely Dan released their Grammy Award-winning album, Two Against Nature. In 1968, the Beatles became the first rock and roll artists to win the Best Album Grammy Award for, of course, Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band. The Fifth Dimension song, Up, Up, and Away, won Record and Song of the Year, along with 3 other Grammys during that ceremony. Also, at that same 1968 Grammy ceremony, Aretha Franklin won the first Grammy given out for Best R&B Female Performance, an award she would win for the next 7 years. She pretty much owned that category. In 1972, John Lennon's American visa ran out, which led to the United States government using that as an excuse to try to deport him back to England. Man, it would be amazing in this day and age. Let's not even go there anyway. The government didn't succeed. In 1992, U2 kicked off their groundbreaking Zoo TV tour, which was one of the first large-scale multimedia stadium tours with TV broadcasts on the video screens on stage and that era's version of Zoom video calls with celebrities like Mike Myers and Dana Carvey doing their Wayne and Garth sketch during the concerts. Also, rapper Ja Rule was born on February 29th, 1976. These days, he's better known as being 50 Cent's best buddy. Not really. Sworn enemy is more like it. Singer Davy Jones of the Monkees unfortunately passed away from heart issues on February 29th, 2012 at the age of 66. And all that happened on February 29th. Like I said, once every 4 years. And that is it for the Music History In-Depth podcast for February 26th through March 4th.